Yes! What is up, everyone? You know what to do. Hit like and subscribe, and let's get after it. Oh, hi, hello, and welcome to your favorite Average to Good podcast. Call it what you want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Chuck Wagon Davies and Tony Big Tones Viola. And we have a big show for everybody because the Olympic roster has just been dropped for our U.S. youth national team. That's where it got released. It's not on the U.S. men's national team, but we know these are men that are going to be competing for us in Paris for the Olympics. And I think what's interesting, guys, and Tones, I'll come to you first, is that this roster is so small. I'm looking at all the names. I'm like, okay, then who else? And then who else? And actually, we should, before we get to that, let me just name.
Don't be so disrespectful, Jimmy. Come on.
I'm not saying it just feels so small.
I'm just playing with you.
Okay, cool. Stop triggering me, Chuck. We're only at 58 seconds into the show. Okay, so in goal, Patrick Schulte and Gaga Slonina. Defenders, we got Max Dietz, Nathan Harriel, Miles Robinson, John Tolkien, Caleb Wiley, Walker Zimmerman. We got Busio in midfield with Kramaski, McGlynn, Mihailovic, and Tessman. I mean, we have 5 midfielders listed, which is crazy. Paxton Aronson, Taylor Booth, Duncan McGuire, Kevin Paredes, and Griffin Yao. That's it. Those are our guys. That seems like a really small group of players, but obviously some omissions in there, potentially some snubs, with Diego Luna in particular being the big name. And I'm a huge Diego Luna fan, so I'm a little sad and disappointed he's not involved. But Big Tones, your thoughts on this roster?
Yeah, he is absolutely the biggest snub here. But with regards to the roster, I don't think there's any big, massive surprise in the guys that got called up. All of these guys were involved outside of, I believe, our overage players, Robinson, Zimmerman, and Georgi Mihailovic. We'll get to those, I'm sure, in a second. But, I don't think there's a massive surprise. I guess the one change, right, with Aiden Morris, who we thought was going to go to this thing potentially with the move to Middlesbrough, he can't go. But Diego Luna, you're absolutely right. And first off, we should say congratulations to these guys.
We should, absolutely.
Making a roster, it is, Jim. It's a massive deal. Just think, you guys have all been through it, like waiting for that phone call to make a tournament team, and you're just kind of waiting, and you finally get that call. Even the guys that kind of know that they're going to make the team in a lot of ways, right? So congratulations, and we wish them and Marko Mitrović all the best. And then we'll dissect this roster. But when you think about 18 players, I was with you. I'm like, okay, well, where's the rest of the announcement? There's where's the other 5 players? And it's really, really it's got to be really difficult to pick this roster.
All right, and Chuck, as the guy here on the podcast that was in our last Olympics, and the last time we represented the U.S. in the Olympics in 2008 in Beijing, your thoughts on this roster and a little bit of like what it means once that gets officially announced. How did that feel for you, and how do you think these players are going to feel?
Incredible accomplishment to have been selected for the U.S. men's Olympic team. It's only 18 spots. You're competing with, some of the greatest athletes that this planet has ever seen in terms of all the sports being a part of the Olympic Games. I know it's going to be a bummer that they're not going to be at the opening ceremony, because that's one where you really get to take it in. You meet all the Olympians from all over the world throughout that walk, throughout the evening. So they're not taking part in that, which will be kind of a bummer given what I got to experience it and meeting. First of all, you meet the president of the United States, then you meet the whole Team USA basketball team and all the gymnastics and swimmers, and then you meet everyone from every country. So it's so cool, that whole experience. But in terms of this team, they gotta really come together as a unit and defend. It's gotta be the most organized performance every single match to go through, because they don't have, the number of players, which caught my eye, the age eligible players who could play in the Olympics who aren't going because the club's not releasing them. And part of it is, what can you do? Control what you can control. If a club is not going to release a player who is of age, for me, Ricardo Pepi, with a sporting director like Ernie Stewart, who's played for the U.S. men's national team, who was the former sporting director of U.S. soccer before taking this PSV job, did not release Ricardo Pepi. And I understand Malik Tillman because he plays, but Ricardo Pepi doesn't even play for PSV. So and we really need a number 9. So that one really hurts. I think that one stings in terms of leaning on a sporting director of a European club, one that played for the U.S. and worked for U.S. soccer, and couldn't come through, and knowing how important it is for the growth of U.S. soccer, but also for Ricardo Pepi's career. There's not a lot of pace in this team. Typically, this age group had Cade Cowell, and that's where the change of pace could come from. And whether he started or coming off the bench, he could have an impact. I look at that France game, the friendly in France, where Cade Cowell came off the bench and made a big difference. But Diego Luna has 12 assists this season in Major League Soccer, 5 goals to go with 12. He was the best player at the U20 World Cup. It is mind-boggling how he's not on this team. Who are the individual players in terms of dribbling people and creating?
I get it.
It's a lot of the similar type of players. Like, look at the midfield: Busio, Kramaski, McGlynn, Mihailovic, Tessman. 0 pace. So you can never play with 1-6. You have to play with 2 because they can't cover as much ground as you want. So therefore, the defensive structure of defending with 6, it feels like a must.
No, I get you. I think if and I can't believe that Diego Luna is not on the team. And I know that there was he missed a camp prior to, and there might have been some talk or disappointment between the coaching staff and him throughout the lead up into this decision. And I think they asked him to be an alternate, from what I understand. And he said, no, he kind of said, I don't want to be an alternate either. And then he goes out and has a 1-goal, 3-assist game against Atlanta United this past weekend for RSL. So fair play to him. Only 20 years old, getting after it and making things happen. I love his player profile, and I think he's a contrast to some of the other players that are not only on this roster, but just in terms of our player pool in general. And I don't know how big of a conversation we want to have about the kind of the lost art of we're not really developing number 10s anymore, the traditional number 10s. And I think he falls into that space.
Or what?
What's that?
Should I call you Jimmy Bielsa now? We're not creating enough number 10s in the United States.
Well, we could say we're not creating enough number 9s either, which is another area of concern for me with regard to this roster, because we only have Duncan McGuire and that's it. So I think that Paredes can be someone that can give you some speed on out wide, but in terms of the middle of the midfield, I agree with you that we're lacking some pace. I guess if I'm Marko Mitrović, and Tones, I'll want you to jump in here about this. You're basically like, how are these 3 games going to play out? And who am I going to trust? Now, Djordje Mihailovic has been excellent for Colorado Rapids this season, 10 goals, 6 assists, and looks like he's regained the confidence that he lost after he went over to Holland and it wasn't working as well for him and wasn't being trusted maybe in the same way. Comes back in and now he's the guy, and it's awesome. It's fun to see him play with confidence, and I hope that continues into the Olympics. But if you feel like he's going to be your guy that's going to be that final, making the final pass or spraying the ball out wide, and Tessman and Busio can make those passes too. But if you're trusting Mihailovic in between the gaps and you don't think you're going to have room for Diego Luna, even though I think it's inexplicable that he's not in the team, if that's how they're seeing how these 3 games are going to play out, then.
So you're saying Djordje Mihailovic, because he's young, he should be playing every single minute. 90 minutes,
I'm just saying that's
match.
what I think Marko Mitrović is doing as coach. Like, I think he's reverse engineering. How do I think these 3 games are going to play out? Obviously, how we approach France is going to be much different than how we approach New Zealand 3 days later. By the way, what's also crazy about this roster, we have 2 goalkeepers. So you have 16 field players. We got 3 games in a week. And how you manage those minutes is going to be crazy. I mean, you fully expect everybody on the roster to play, which is another reason why I think if Mihailovic does go down, he's got some injury concerns over the years. Diego Luna would have been a nice fit. But Tones, your thoughts on this part of the conversation?
Yeah, so with the Luna part, whether it was Diego Luna or Esmir Barakovic up in New England, that special kind of different player isn't in this group, right? We don't have that. I'll call him number 10, right? They both play. One plays a little bit further on the left. Barakovic has been playing a little bit further on the right, although Caleb Porter has used him as a 10 in the 4-2-3-1 over the last couple of weeks. So he's kind of taken that role out. So my concerns with the group are, as you guys were talking about, midfield. It looks like we're going to have to play with 2. The speed of this group, I wouldn't call it a fast team. I wouldn't call it a slow team. But I don't know how we're going to press if that's how Marko Mitrović wants to play. And then the backup number 9, you mentioned it, Duncan McGuire. He's the 9. Who's the backup number 9 in here? If something happens to him,
there isn't.
I don't see another. The one thing with 18s, I think, if you look at like a Nathan Harriel, he's played all four of the – actually, he's played 5 back positions in Philadelphia. He's played as a left wing back with 3 central defenders. He's played in all 3 of those. Of course, he's a right-sided player. So you can look and go, okay, well, I got a guy that's versatile. So if I need to make a change, I can do that. With Robinson and Zimmerman, we know their positions. We know how they play, where they play. In the midfield, there's not a lot of versatility. Testament and Busio, I think, will be the 2 holding midfielders with Mihailovic in front of them. If that's how he wants to play, Marco, can Busio play a little bit higher? Yeah, but it's not his position. It's not where he feels most comfortable. And then again, up top, we've got some good wing play from this group, but my concern, number 9. So is he managing the tournament? I suppose you mentioned the games. They come on the 24th against France, 27th against Guinea, or is it Guinea, and 30th against New Zealand. So you're right, Jimmy. 7 days, 3 games. Everybody's going to have to be involved in this thing.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, and we'll get into the overage players here as well, is we don't know all the conversations that were happening behind the scenes. We don't know which players that wanted to play. I'm sure there were a lot of players that wanted to play.
No, I could tell you, Jimmy, that Gio Reyna wanted to play, and Dortmund didn't release him. I can tell you that Pepe and Tillman wanted to play. Ernie did not release them from PSV.
Then those are probably 3 of many.
Yunus Musa, not released. So if you're Yunus Musa on top of that, if you have a new manager and Fonseca coming to the club,
yeah, right.
These are the times where you can't miss a preseason. And there are situations where you're coming into a team and the coach knows you. You're not going to really move up or down. Maybe you're already a starter. You can miss preseason. It's not like you're sitting at home. You're playing games, so you're still going to come in fit. But there are times where you have a new manager. You have to prove to that new manager that you can be used, or he can rely on you, or that you got to show your quality throughout the preseason, and you can't win back that time. So it's so valuable that you need to stay for that preseason rather than playing the Olympics.
Yeah, so I guess that, and this isn't isolated to us. I know that Thierry Henry was having these same issues with France. We'll get into France's roster in a bit, because even despite his issues, he's still stacked, and his overage players are pretty legit. I want to talk about ours, though. We knew that coming into this, we needed some center backs, and we got 2 very experienced ones that have a nice rapport, played a lot of games together with the full team, and Walker Zimmerman and Miles Robinson. Miles Robinson didn't play in the Copa América, so I don't know how he was performing, but it seemed like Gregg had already made his decision throughout that tournament to kind of ride or die, including the 2 friendlies before Copa América, that he had his back 4 pretty much set. And then you have Djordje Mihailovic, who I'm not disappointed that he's there. I guess I'm just disappointed that Diego Luna, who has a similar profile, got excluded in this one. But I guess where I think we're really thin, and Tony mentioned it too, is at the number 9 spot. So Brandon Vasquez, Haji Wright, Ricardo Pepi, that is
not released. Haji Wright not released either.
Yeah, I think all 3 of those guys not released. And that gives me some concern, because, and as our resident number 9, Chuck, you could throw somebody up there to be a false 9. You could maybe put a Paxton Aronson up there if we wanted to press crazy, and then he could drop in and try to create numerical advantages in midfield. But then you're going to have to rely on your wingers to really get involved and create that depth to be able to be a threat to get in behind. I actually think we got some speed out on the wings. Griffin Yao can get in behind. So you got Kevin Paredes who can get in behind. If Caleb Whaley plays a little higher, he can get in behind. But to your point, Tones, it seems like we have quite a few outside backs, right? Because Kevin Paredes can play the left back spot. And then you have Nathan Ariel, who can play either side. And then you have John Tolkien. And it just feels like, why couldn't we have sacrificed maybe one of those left backs to bring in another threat? But then that kind of gets me back to the part of the conversation with maybe just guys weren't available or their clubs wouldn't release them. And so this is the best that we could do with what we have.
Yeah, you just wonder what those conversations were behind the scenes, right? And on the flip side of players not being available, you look at Philadelphia Union allowing their Jack McGlynn to go. Look at FC Cincinnati with Pat Noonan, right? I had a conversation with Pat, I think it was 2 weeks ago. It might have been 3 weeks ago, talking about Miles Robinson, and he said, U.S. Soccer has to do something because I'm going to miss a center back for 8 weeks. And he said, I'm just not in a position in my head to not allow a guy to have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So I've committed to, in a bad time, by the way, with no Matt Miazga, then Hagelin goes down, and now you're struggling for center backs, and you let your number one or number two center back, whatever you want to call him in your team, you let him go for 8 weeks. And he was ticked off at U.S. Soccer because he essentially was saying, and I'm reading between the lines, like, why is my player going to Copa América when you know he's not going to play, and then you want to take him to the Olympics? But he said, I'm just not going to do that to kids. So credit to him for sticking to his conviction and giving Miles Robinson the opportunity to go and do something that he's never going to be able to do again. Right? So there's the flip side of the story, but all of these omissions, I just wonder what those conversations were. And I don't know, did you say Brandon Vasquez was also not released? Is that what we know? Or is he just completely out of any conversation with anything to do with U.S. Soccer? Because I don't, maybe I'm missing something, but the fact that he's only gotten so many chances with the national team, I would have thought this would have been a big one. Now, he might not have been released, but I never heard his name in the conversation.
Yeah, I don't know about him. And you see also Cade Kyle's not there. So was he not released or was he not selected? I would assume he just wasn't released, given how he would be the only speed kind of option that the U.S. has. And I go back to 2008 Olympics with my group. We had Freddie Adu, we had Josie Altidore, we had myself, and we still brought Brian McBride. So we had 4 strikers. They have one, just one.
I know.
Which is crazy to me. Nuts. That's nuts. So it's a little bit of a tough situation when you're looking at this roster, because we talked about it this morning on Morning Footy, of players that you're looking forward to seeing it. And for me, it's Kevin Paredes, because he has done well in some moments in the Bundesliga. He's got the pace. So typically playing left back or left wing back or left mid, and now he's going to be tasked with playing left wing for this group, and he's got to be consistent.
Yeah, no, he's a player that I'm looking forward to seeing as well. And I kind of put together an 11, and Tones, I want to hear from you about the goalkeeper, because I didn't know which one they're going to start or which one everybody thinks. I mean, you can make a case for either one of them. But you have either Schulte or Gaga in goal, and then you had Harriel on the right side, Miles and Walker. Obviously, you're going to start your overage players, center backs. I don't know if we go with Tolkien or go with Wiley. That seems like I guess maybe depends on the opponent. You got Tessman and Busio and Georgi Mihailovic in midfield. You got McGuire up top. You got Paredes at the left wing spot. And then I think I'm a big Taylor Booth fan too. So as long as he's healthy, I really like his game. But maybe him on the right side or Paxton Aronson. So yeah, for me, it's kind of left back, goalkeeper, and maybe that right wing spot. Everything else seems pretty set. But let's get to the goalkeepers. Tones, as our resident goalkeeper, who do you like and who do you think should start against France?
Well, Schulte played in the last camp. Remember, Gaga was called into that camp, and everybody thought that he was going to be the number one guy, and then he got injured just before the camp. But remember, I covered the Chicago Fire when he came up. He was 17, just turning 18 at the time. And I said back then, so it's 4 years ago now, 3.5 years ago, when I saw him come up in the first team, I said Gaga Slonina is going to be part of the 2026 World Cup. And I really think that he's going to be on that roster and potentially pushing for a spot. So this could be a massive, massive tournament for Gaga Slonina, right? Makes that move to Chelsea and then goes to UPenn, where he got an awful lot of work at UPenn over the season. And it was probably going to be one of the best things that's happened to him throughout his career. Guy's got everything, man. I'd be interested to see how Marko Mitrović, because Gaga didn't play in that last camp, how he handles this whole thing. Plus, Schulte is in the middle of the season having a really good season once again. He's following up last year with just as good a season this year. But these two guys, and in particular Gaga Slonina, is going to make a push to be on that 2026 team. And I think it's really important that we continue to push that position, especially at the moment.
All right, that's a good shout. I'm curious to see who gets to start as well. France is going to ask a lot of questions, I believe, of our defense. And they did the first time we played against them in the 2-2 draw a couple months ago. All right, we're going to take our first break of Call It What You Want. When we come back, Christian Pulisic putting out cryptic messages on his Instagram. We're going to get into that. We'll talk a little bit about France's roster, and it should be a lot of fun. Don't go anywhere.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
Welcome back in to Call What You Want. I'm Jimmy alongside Charlie and Big Tones, and we are getting into it Olympic roster style. Let's just talk about France briefly, and then we get into Christian Pulisic and his message to fans. I think with regard to France, they named their 3 overage players. Thierry Henry is the coach of this team, and they added 2 strikers, which would be nice to add to our own team, right, Chuck? But they have Jean-Philippe Mateta, who played at Crystal Palace last year, was Crystal Palace Player of the Year, 27 years old, had 16 goals, and was on fire. And he is a good ad. I really like his game a lot, and he's continuing to get confidence, especially under Palace's new manager, Oliver Glasner. And then they added Michael Luis, who was also at Palace, even though he is age eligible. 10 goals and 6 assists in the Premier League last year. Made the move to Bayern Munich right now in the summer transfer window, and he's very Oluise. Sorry, thank you for that. And then Loic Bade, 24-year-old center back, plays at Sevilla, so he's one of the overage players. And then Alexander Lacazette, who 33 years old, plays at Lyon, obviously played for Arsenal. For those that don't know, 53 goals in 74 games since going back to Lyon after leaving Arsenal. The guy can score goals in bunches. And that team's pretty good, Chuck. They're going to be a nice test for us when we play them once again on Wednesday, July 24th. And that is 2 days before the opening ceremonies. So, yeah, that's why they're going to miss out on that, as Chuck talked about a little bit earlier. Honestly, when I look at that game, it's kind of like that's going to be what it is. But the other 2 games, New Zealand and Guinea, we're going to have to – those are where we're going to get our results. The France game is just kind of like, let's just see what we can do, right?
Yeah. Again, it's the 2-2 draw in France in a friendly that gave this group a real hope and also made France aware that you can't sleep on the United States being up 2-0. But they had players that come off the bench that were different. And we talked about profiles like Cade Cowell. I saw in the comments here, Cade Cowell is one-dimensional. You can be one-dimensional and still be effective as hell. Let me tell you that, especially when it comes to pace and being decisive and one-on-one, having no fear. That's what he had. Also, what Tony touched on, Esmir Bayraktarovic. I watch him every week with the New England Revolution. I thought it was going to be a stretch for him to make this team of 18 players if you have everybody who's potentially available being able to go and released. This roster, he should be on it. If we're talking about right now, given the players on this team, Esmir Bayraktarovic has that 1v1 ability, the type of profile you need to break down teams, who's creative, who's not afraid to try things. This would be a great opportunity for him, and I think that they missed out not including him on this roster. So I'm trying to look at players that will come in to make a difference. And if Griffin Yao is starting with Kevin Paredes on one side and him on the other and Duncan Maguire, is there much of a difference maker in terms of a substitute that offers you something different than what's already on the pitch? I don't see it. There isn't one.
Yeah.
The only person who you'd say, oh, coming off the bench will give you something is Caleb Wiley. If he doesn't start and John Tolkien starts, it's Caleb Wiley gives you a little bit more verticality at the left back spot. That's what we're talking about here.
Hey, I don't know. I hate asking dumb questions, but maybe this is dumb or maybe I'm just overthinking this. But France got 2 players released from Crystal Palace. They got Bade released from Sevilla and Lacazette released from Lyon, but we can't get Pepe and Tillman released from PSV or any of the other players.
With the U.S. men's national team. Former player.
Am I missing something here? Am I like I don't know why.
This is big news. Tony,
I don't get it, man.
There's not an excuse in the world for Ernie, who has bled red, white, and blue. This is the thing that kills me. He has been in our shoes, and he's been in Matt Crocker's shoes. So he knows the inner workings of U.S. soccer. He's played in World Cups for U.S., and he makes the decision to say, you know what? No Pepe for you. What?
I
What
agree.
do you mean?
And it's not like they got a new coach coming in, right? They have
You know what you have.
They already know what they have. That's
And the
really
situation doesn't change.
I agree with
Luke
you.
de Jong is the captain. He's been playing in front.
Gio doesn't play at any of his clubs. Like I
Right.
get new coach. Musa's got a new coach coming in. I understand, but Musa plays very little. Like I don't know. When I saw these names and then I didn't think about it, but Jimmy, when you were reading them off before, I'm like, hold on, man. These guys are getting like think about Mateta and what he did last year at Crystal Palace.
Yeah,
I mean, he was outrageous. He's not a sub. He's not an average player. He's not a guy coming off an injury where you want to get some games. Like this guy's a star for them. And
I honestly, I think it's when Thierry Henry picks up the phone, it's just different than Marko Mitrovic. I mean, that must be, or whoever else is calling from US Soccer.
Yeah, but I'll tell you right now, even Thierry had a lot of trouble.
For sure. He'd already come out and said that publicly.
I mean, Kylian Mbappe said he wants to play. He wanted to go.
That'd be amazing.
And Real Madrid said, you could choose the Olympics, you choose us. There's no both of us in that scenario. So I mean,
yeah, they can't risk that.
At the end of the day, that happens. But you're telling me of all the players that we have available that are age eligible that don't get released, you can't get half of them. I
get it, dude. I get it. I honestly, this is what I want to apologize to everybody. I buried the lead. US Soccer is making a big announcement on Gregg Berhalter this week, and we're gonna have an emergency podcast when that news drops, one way or the other. And so all this Olympic talk, and I am frustrated with Ernie Stewart, and I want him to come on the show to explain himself because it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And I wonder if
you can't tell me it's the club stance. It's the club stance. No, you make the stance.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
you are making the laws at the club. You are the sporting director. Don't tell me this is the club stance. You know.
Yeah, it's unreal.
It's tough to take. I can tell you.
All right, so let's get to Christian Pulisic. We'll use that as our way into this conversation about Gregg Berhalter. Pulisic put out on Instagram, "You deserve and will get better, U.S. fans. Better days ahead." He probably could have added a couple commas there to make "You deserve and will get better, U.S. fans."
Where did we need the comma most in this thing?
but we're picking up what he's putting down. Better days ahead, and that feels very cryptic as to, does that mean more Gregg Berhalter, or does it just mean in general we're going to play better? Or less.
I love this. This is when people want to read into every little line and say, okay, this means Gregg's staying, he's happy, and this group is gonna get better. We promise. Or does this mean US Soccer, let them know they're making a change and better and brighter days ahead? Because there's gonna be he's just I don't think we should read into it like they're going one way or another. I think he's just seriously looking back, reflecting at Copa América. It was
like, hey, things are going to get better. Don't worry.
It was a massive failure. The disappointment. He had time to reflect, and just letting everyone know, hey, it's on us because we didn't perform well. We didn't do our jobs because we didn't execute in the end.
Right.
So my bad, because I'm the leader. I'm taking responsibility, which I think is classy from him to let everyone know, hey, it's going to be better. It's on me. That's basically what I'm taking from that.
I think you're right.
Coaching.
So Tones, let's take it this direction. Do you think that Panama's defeats, their ass kicking by Colombia, compounds Berhalter's future? I mean, for me, the Panama game is the one where I was the most disappointed because I thought we were not very good in managing that game, managing the situation, especially when it went up a goal. I'm not going to get back into it, but given that result and given how poorly Panama played, though they went at them, they had a couple chances, but Colombia ultimately wore them down. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think I still of the opinion that the one match doesn't matter, right? Like I didn't think Uruguay mattered for Gregg's job, right? We kept saying, and everyone kept saying, well, if he wins that game, he stays. If he loses that game, I'm still, Jimmy, going to look at the cycle from December of 2022 until now and see no improvement, right? And that's kind of where my head is with this whole thing. It's like that's where I think you make the decision, not on if Canada wins and Jesse does well and all that stuff, or Panama loses. Like I'm looking at the U.S. team, and for me, they still just haven't improved since 2022. And I think that's your decision. At least if I'm sitting in that room, that's how I'm looking at it. Looking at, okay, where did we go from when Gregg took over till getting out of the group at the World Cup? Okay, for me was an improvement. And I was okay with where they were going. But then the next phase is, where do we go from here? And that's where I'm still caught up with Jimmy, that they haven't gotten better. And that's why if you make a decision to move on, that's why you move on. Not for anything else that happens, because U.S. Soccer really can't be worried about anything else other than their own team.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about this decision, quote unquote, the decision, LeBron James-esque, the decision that's happening here midweek from U.S. Soccer, and what's going to be said or not said.
By the way, Jimmy, before you finish,
go ahead.
If U.S. Soccer makes a sort of statement like that, hey, guys, everyone in media, we're making an announcement next week. Don't you think that that means they have to move on? Because
they have to move on.
They don't.
You can't have that and then say, hey, by the way, Gregg Berhalter is coming back. You can't say that.
But my whole point is he has a contract. So they don't need to make a statement on his future. They wouldn't have to say, guys, next week we got, because they would just say, all right, well, we're keeping him. He's under contract. We don't have to tell you anything. We don't have to have an official meeting of, all right, guys, the decision's in. He's staying.
Well,
you know, like
no, I then the pitchforks would be out. I mean, we'd all be like, what the hell is even going on here? Which is more than possible given some of the decisions we've seen in the past. But I wonder what that happens. But after the game, Matt Crocker said we're going to review everything and we're going to take a look at this. So I think having a decision is just putting a button on the review. And if the review means, hey, we like what Gregg's doing.
I like that.
But I don't know. And I agree with Tones that we hit a ceiling. And I thought it was very clear that we had hit a ceiling with Gregg Berhalter. Like there was nothing he was going to do after the 2022 World Cup that was going to move the group along. I super obvious to see, even more obvious to see in hindsight. But anyway, there's been a report from Doug McIntyre who said that USSF, US Soccer, will reach out to Jurgen Klopp, but that Steve Cherundolo could be a more realistic option. Now,
have you heard any whispers about Jurgen?
I've heard that he is not this. I don't have any like out and out sources, but I heard that there was some talks that he wasn't interested. That's the only whispers I've heard. So we'll see. I hope that somebody was like messing with me, because I'll be absolutely thrilled if Jurgen Klopp takes over. Obviously,
who's your source, Jimmy?
Who's your little
I'm
finger?
I'm not naming names.
I want to know who your little finger is.
I wouldn't be surprised though if Jurgen Klopp has no interest in this job. I mean, who knows, right? Maybe he does want to take a year off. Maybe he doesn't have an interest now, but that doesn't shock me if that is true, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the rumor that I heard out there too is that they were offering him $10 million a year, or his people put out a long time ago when the first search happened that he'd be looking for $10 million a year. Yeah, I mean, things can change over time. We'll have to wait and see. He did put out that Instagram message shouting out all U.S. fans or whatever. So that
he just
was,
said, let me have some banter.
That didn't help.
He said,
no, that didn't help.
Let me have some bunts with the U.S. group.
Yeah, that didn't help at all. But in speaking with Doug McIntyre, when he brought up Cherundolo, I had mentioned to Doug that I even think Steve Cherundolo would probably say, I don't have enough experience, or I'm not ready to
he's got
I'm
a
not
great
the right
thing
stage of my
going
career to take that over. Listen, I love Steve Cherundolo. I think he's an incredible player. I don't think he gets the respect that he deserves kind of when you look back at his playing career, and super smart, both on and off the field. I always knew he'd be a good coach, and that's proven to be true with LAFC. But I think he would even say, yeah, this would be cool, but I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. I know if it was offered to him, it'd probably be hard to turn down. But if he's looking at it critically, that's what I think. And the Steve that I know would be like, I don't know yet. Like I don't know if I'm maybe 2030, 2034, when I have more years under my belt, that makes a lot more sense for me. But
I think for Cherundolo too, he wouldn't leave the situation he's in right now in the LAFC. It's not like it's a sinking ship and he's looking for a way out. It's a machine. Just keep winning. And obviously, I think ideally he'd like to go manage in the Bundesliga first and get that experience. And then I think that he's in the path right now, the mindset of let me try and get as far as I possibly can and fulfill my potential, because taking the U.S. job doesn't make sense. That's always going to be there as a former U.S. international, someone who's won an MLS Cup and got to another one and could win more silverware with LAFC at the moment. So those opportunities aren't going anywhere. Get the experiences that you can't get. You can't make up for if you pass them by. So I think, one, it's too early for him as well. But two, this is something where he can have this down the line. He's going to just keep pushing and continue to try and have as much success as he can.
Okay, so let's get into this quote from one of your teammates back in the day, Big Tones, from Tab Ramos. He had an interview with Mike Wotella from Soccer America, and in it he said, "I hope we go after an international coach. We just need somebody to come in for 18 months who knows the World Cup and can prepare this team the best that he can to give this team the best shot at having a great World Cup. That's it. No learning on the job person, someone who has been there and done that and win as much as possible at the World Cup, and then we can see what happens."
It's kind of like Bora, no?
Yeah, you bring somebody in who knows the deal. And so I agree with Tab here. This is we're in the no bullshit zone now. Like, we need to hire and bring somebody in that knows how to get the most out of a group in a short period of time, get everybody on the same page, and we're getting after it, right?
Well,
and I don't think we have that obviously in place right now.
I can tell you, Tab knows the group better than anybody, right? He's coached in more European or more knockout competitions than any U.S. coach that we've ever had, between the youth and with national teams. Let me go back to Cherundolo really, really quick. I think Steve Cherundolo will be the coach of our national team one day. But this isn't the time for Steve Cherundolo. And I'm with you, Jimmy. I think he knows it. He understands it. He probably feels the same way. Now, with that said, where do you go? I just think you need somebody that not only understands and knows the group, but is going to put their foot down, right? Because every camp, I feel like I keep hearing this narrative about the players are comfortable. They like the coach. Well, you know what? The fact that they like the coach. Look, Gregg is a likable guy. If you meet him, you're going to like him, right? It's not. So I get it, but who cares in the end? Like, did you like every coach you played for? I don't think so. You and I were just talking off air, and we don't have to bring up the names, but you didn't necessarily like every minute of your time. But you know what you did? You played and you busted your ass, right? Like, who cares if you like the coach? If you like all your team, it's great if you do. I've been every national team I was on. We all liked each other, right? We didn't go around telling everybody this. I use the word kumbaya that we were having. No, you busted your ass, and that's what you did. So I'd rather have a coach that everybody hates, but we find ourselves in the semifinal of the World Cup in 2006. You know what I mean? Like, like, I don't care. Like, that you most guys like their coach. Right? You like them. There's 11 guys every game that like the coach a lot. And there's 3 guys that, like the coach a little bit, or 5 guys now, I'm dating myself. 5 guys now that get in the game that like their coach a little bit. And the rest of the team hates the coach. Like, that's how the world of soccer is, right? Like, so I'm tired of hearing about all of that and committees, and I just want the guy that's going to straighten this group out and put us in the right direction. I don't care. If you want a foreign coach, perfect. Let's get a foreign coach. You want an American coach? Perfect. Let's get an American coach. I don't care who it is. Just find the right guy to straighten this thing out.
See, I think U.S. soccer, right, are in a predicament because they didn't plan for plan B, plan C, plan D, right? This is something they did not plan for.
That's how the team plays on the field, Chuck. That's kind of funny you say that.
They didn't see the U.S. men's national team not getting out of the group. I can tell you right now. There's no way they thought that would happen, that would be a possibility. Forget the knockout stages of losing to Colombia, Brazil. If you have a good match, you can make – if they had a match like they did against Uruguay and they lost to Colombia or Brazil in that knockout round, you'd say, hey, well, it was a pretty valiant effort, right? We kind of knew we weren't going to get through. It was we had hopes, and there was some – then they just say, we're going to stick with them because the guys worked hard and they fought. And the excuse was they got out of the group and they ran up against a tough team, right? A semifinalist in Copa América. That's out the window. They didn't prepare. So now they're at the drawing board. Like, what do we go from here? I think fans want to see a big name. Fans want a name that everyone can get behind. If you say, someone who has charisma, a big name, it's easy. I think all former players, we just want a manager who knows how to coach the team, whose experience will lead them to playing some good style of football and soccer that we know they can achieve, and maybe do something different, right? Go further than we hope and exceed expectations. That's what I would like to see. But again, for U.S. soccer, it's how long will, if they do decide to move on for Gregg, and I don't see I don't see a possible way that they can stick with Gregg after this failure. So how long will that coaching search last? How long are they willing to let it last till you find the right guy?
Yeah, I think what's interesting about U.S. soccer is, was there a quote out there from somebody, a journalist, who said that Gregg Berhalter, or maybe even Doug said this, they consider Gregg Berhalter radioactive right now. If you think that right now you think he's radioactive, you've been living in a bubble for quite some time. He's been radioactive, I think, since he got rehired in the position, or even after he made those comments about Gio Reyna. All right, we're going to take our last break of Call It What You Want. We have more to talk about, of course, with Gregg Berhalter, and then maybe some guy who's an American, the only American left in Copa América, coaching Canada right now, Jesse Marsch. We'll get into him as well. Don't go anywhere.
An unsub, a seasoned one. And he's leaving a calling card.
How do we find a ghost? I have a plan.
Oh, baby, let's get into it. Call It What You Want is back here for the final stretch. I'm Jimmy alongside Charlie and Tony, and we are going to discuss one Jesse Marsch, who was once a part of the show and then left us to go coach the Canadian men's national team. He has since said he'll want to come back on the show, so hopefully we'll get to talk about with him, after Copa América. Now we're having this conversation about the coaches, and Tony, I'll come to you on this. We've seen from Jesse that there is, maybe in terms of results, they've only won 1 out of 6 games that he's been in charge, right? I guess he won in penalties, of course, against Venezuela. So they look good against Venezuela. So that was ultimately a draw after 90 minutes, but they scored their second ever goal in that game, a very good one with the Canadian Messi, Jacob Schaffelberg. A draw against Chile, even though they had a man advantage for 70 minutes. Peru, they won with a man advantage, 1-0. Then they lost to Argentina, and they drew with France, and they lost to the Netherlands. So but there's something different about this team. And what I think it is just like a breath of fresh air. You can see that the team and the players are re-energized when they have somebody that has a clear voice, a clear identity of what they want to do. I think it's absolute batshit crazy sometimes the way that they're approaching it, but it is really fun to watch.
But before you say anything else, you're going to say that they're more motivated than they were in World Cup
motivated.
Qualifying?
Different. No. 2022 World Cup, they looked good, and I thought they had good moments. World Cup qualifying, they were excellent.
Yes,
in the World Cup,
phenomenal.
They went right at Belgium. Qualifying. What's that? They were very good.
Yeah, they were phenomenal.
I think he's inherited a team, but they just it feels like they needed a new energy or a new, when Herdman left to go coach Toronto FC, they lost their guy that was driving it, and now they needed somebody in place, and it feels like the buy-in it looks like it's complete now. That could change, right? If they get slapped around, then all of a sudden there's going to be lots of questions. And he's only won 1 out of the 6 in regulation. But anyway, Tones, thoughts on Jesse Marsch and his addition and impact on Canada so far?
Yeah, I think it's clear, right? You touched on some of the things. There's a different energy about the group. They certainly play a little bit differently, right? And you're right. Some of it is crazy. Go back to, and Charlie and I were just breaking down the goal that they conceded against Venezuela earlier this morning on Morning Footy. You're like, okay, you're leading right now. You don't need to throw so many bodies forward, but so it's risk reward, right? In how Jesse wants to play. And look, in some places it worked. In some places it didn't, right? At Red Bull it worked. At Salzburg it worked. When you got to Leipzig, those players were just getting away from pressing for 90 minutes, and he wanted to go back to it. Then it was changed maybe a little bit, and the players were kind of upset about the way he was playing. So it works in some places. It worked for a little while. Leeds helped them, stay in the Premier League. on the last day of the season. He clearly has put his stamp on this group. Like, you have an idea of what they're trying to do when you watch the game. And I think that's really the only thing we can ask, right? So I call games all the time, and, Charlie, you've done it, Jimmy, you've done it. And I always say, I just want to have a clear idea of what the team's trying to do. That doesn't mean you're going to win or you're going to lose. The teams that are hardest to talk about are the teams where you're like, I don't know if they were a pressing team. I don't know if they were a possession team. I don't know if they were a counterattacking team. Like, I didn't get a feel for what they were trying to do. Jesse's way is really, really clear. It's 100. It's very Bielsa-like, right? In Uruguay, destroy plays, get at teams quick. First pass when the ball turns over. They want to look forward to play. It's high energy. I guess the question in the tournament, and you guys would know best because, I sat my fat ass back there in the goal, but after 5 games, can you press like that all the time? Like, what you guys should be like, feeling like that after a couple of games. Forwards, Laren and Jonathan David, they're doing a lot of chasing, man. A lot of chasing and starting the attack. So you guys would know better. What is it? I don't know how many days it, but 5 games now of doing that. That's a lot.
Yeah, I think what's interesting stat for me, Chuck, is that in the 6 games that Jesse Marsch has been in charge, they have yet to give up a goal in the first half. Now, their opponents have had opportunities. It's not like they've completely stifled teams in the first half. But I think, as to your point, Tones, as they tire, because you can't keep that pressing up for 90 minutes, then the space starts to open up, the gaps start to open up, and then these other teams can exploit that. Chile had a ton of chances. Thinking about that game in particular, Argentina. Honestly, if the Argentina-Canada game would have played out and each team scored all their chances, that would have been 7-2 in favor of Argentina. So yeah, I mean, there's been a little bit of good fortune, I would say. But I think from Jesse's perspective, that's just part of his.
You got it.
Yeah, methodology, right? Like he that's the risk reward you're talking about ultimately. So. Yeah, so I guess, Chuck, I'm going to throw this to you. Let's spin it on its head and have some fun. Because I'm sure everybody's fired up in the comments about if Jesse was coaching us through this competition, do you think we would be sitting in the semifinal right now, or if just had a better performance overall during our time in this tournament? I know it's highly speculative, but
yeah, because it's easy to say now. Anybody could have done better because we didn't do well. We didn't play well. We didn't play as well. We didn't execute. Look at the first game against Bolivia. Start off strong. Christian with that absolute golazo off the short corner. And then we get a late goal from Balogun in the first half. Ricardo Pepi comes in, misses 3 easy chances for him normally that you bury. So it went from starting off strong to, hey, Bolivia, they're not good anyways. We should have beat them 5-0. And we come away 2-0, but you're saying, hey, we got 3 points. We got the win. It's a clean sheet, especially from Matt Turner, who had been struggling, especially in the Colombia game, gets the draw against Brazil, and it felt like a win for him to build back his confidence. So clean sheet to start, but his distribution was very poor. And so you're not running away from that. And the Panama game, for me, the tone, and I would be hammering, and we don't know the conversations in the locker room before the game, but hammering, Panama are going to be extra physical with you today. They're trying to get you to react. They want you to put yourself in a bad position, getting 2 yellows, getting a red card, doing anything to level the score. Too. That's what they want. Yes, they talked about the referee before, and they knew that going in. But I would emphasize the player reaction. Forget about the referee. Panama are going to try to make this game even by getting you to react or get a red card, foul, anything out of the ordinary. They're going to try to do whatever they can to gain an advantage. Do not react. I would hammer that every minute before pregame, and during the game, I'd be yelling, keep your cool, focus. And so from that standpoint, yeah, I guess Jesse Marsch, if he came in, would have at least tried to get them to stay focused in that part of the game, but more attacking. And yeah, you're a little bit reckless, but you have more quality than Panama. You have more quality in Bolivia. And then Uruguay would have been like what we saw, maybe not as organized as Gregg had them against Uruguay, but both teams are going to be doing it. So both teams are going to get opportunities. And would you bet on Balogun if he doesn't get injured to finish off a couple or two? It seemed like he was coming into form, but he too was
so
wasteful
in charge,
and had some
Chuck.
poor touches. So yeah,
let's take the Uruguay game out of it. Jesse's in charge. How do you think those two games go for us against Bolivia and Panama? Do you think?
I mean, we created enough chances to win 5-0 with Gregg. So
similar, something similar.
It would have been
and
very
the Panama
similar.
game is
the Panama game. Who knows? Because we got a red card.
Makes a mistake.
Yep.
For me, I'm actually leaving Tim Weah out of this conversation. We just didn't manage the game well, and that's a part, to your point, Tones, where we haven't evolved since the 2022 World Cup. We got asked questions by the Dutch in the round of 16.
Oh, hold on. I gotta address a comment. I just got triggered.
Oh, we triggered him. It's 50 minutes.
MG here. Charlie's saying that he would have predicted Weah's red card. Laughing LMAO. Hindsight 2020. MG. I played the game. I played against Panama. So yes, I would have known that that's what they're trying to do. When you play teams that don't have as much quality as you do, that's what they do. They dive. They embellish. They hit you and try and talk trash and do whatever they can to get you to react, to throw an elbow, to kick. So that's what happened. So yeah, I could have easily predicted that. And I would have been on top of them, not only the coaches, but the players. It's on the players to keep reminding them, hey, this guy is trying to get under your skin. Don't snap.
Listen. What the irony in all this, Chuck,
I
is
was
that
triggered like hell there.
We know that you know that the comments are going to try to trigger you, and yet you're trying to tell people. Listen, the comments are like Panama right now, Chuck, and you're taking the bait every single time.
Take a red card,
right.
Charlie. Right there.
You're like Tim Weah right now. We're going to give a red card to Chuck for getting triggered by MG.
Okay, man, I got triggered. MG, respect. You got me good.
You know, Jimmy, it's so hard. Like the hypothetical, it's so hard. Like, would Jesse do better here? You know, would Klopp do better here? You just never know, man. That's why I keep hearing about all these big names. I don't care if the guy is a big name. I really don't, Jim. I care if he's the right guy to lead this team. Is he the guy that gets the dressing room?
But how does U.S. Soccer determine that, Chuck or Tony? How does that?
We have to go in with like, okay, so Jurgen Klopp, he is kind of everyone's favorite, right? At least it seems that way on social media.
He would tick a lot of boxes. Yeah,
he would, and I certainly, as a fan, I would be excited.
What box doesn't he check?
Yeah, no, I get it. I guess the only
international
box
experience,
he wouldn't, international experience.
Okay.
But you know what? Jurgen Klopp's been in enough Champions Leagues that I think Jurgen Klopp would be able to figure it out with no doubt. But how do you know, like, he's the right guy? I mean, we're never going to know. You have to you're basically making your best guess after you interview X, Y, and Z. And I hope we interview more than 3 people.
There's no guarantees. There's no guarantees.
But you're right. There's no Harvard Bernard is the other guy that keeps coming up, right? And I think he's still coaching right now.
He's coaching the French women's national team.
Yeah, and I think we'll be done right after the Olympics or whatever it is. So
yeah,
but we just don't know. I just don't want to be married to the big name. Look, Jose Mourinho is a big name, but is he the guy that you know what I mean? So it's not about the name for me. It's about the guy that will get this locker room. And the one thing they need to understand is the coach is the boss. I feel like right now the coach is not the boss.
Would you take a Matarazzo? Would you take a Patrick Vieira? Would you take a Thierry Henry?
Yeah, but if they think I would take any of those guys. Yeah, like any of them, as long as they're the guy that we know is going to demand that. Look, I'm the boss. Like, I don't need a leadership committee, Jimmy. I really don't. You tell me we have a leadership committee. We keep hearing about it. I've never been on a team with a leadership committee. What the hell do we need a leadership committee for? What does it do? Tell me what it does. It empowers the players. But what decisions do you make? What do you say? I want to go.
Dress code.
Who cares? I'm going to tell you.
Team dinners, dress code.
I'll tell you when we eat. Go ahead. Give me another one.
I'll tell you this. If Thierry Henry wins a gold with this France team, for me, he's got to be one of the top candidates right now.
I'm with you 100%. Do you think Thierry
Henry, he's got to be 1 or 2 in terms of candidates?
I agree with you.
Given his knowledge of the game, given how he's playing MLS, he knows all the American players, proving that he can coach and win in a major competition. Although the Olympics is not the World Cup, but he's coached internationally now. I would feel extremely confident.
Would he take the job, Chuck?
I think he would.
Yeah.
If it's the right offer, I think he takes the job.
Okay, well, let's leave money aside. Would he want the job? That's
if I were in his shoes and I'm coaching the French under-23s as it is, if you win with all the expectations, think about the expectations. You're coaching an Olympics on home soil, World Cup on home soil. The expectations, you can't get all the players you want, but you make do and you win gold. Why wouldn't you take the next step up coaching a full men's team on a World Cup that's on American soil in a country that he loves? I mean, he has a place in New York City for a reason. He played in MLS. For me, he works on an American network on CBS for Champions League. It's a no-brainer.
Chuck is TT's biggest. Are you his publicist, Chuck? Because I feel like
I'm actually trying to be on his staff, so that's why I'm
Oh my God, my heads would blow. I mean, call it what you want. It's like the breeding ground for coaches of national teams. That would be amazing. All right,
Jimmy,
so
you're saying there's a chance, Jimmy.
For me and you, there's you. Listen,
we're looking for high school jobs right now. That's where we're at right now.
Well,
right?
Listen. If JJ Redick can go from a podcast to coaching the Lakers, then anything's possible.
Hey, I heard Tony. I heard your name's being circled around all these job vacancies.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they didn't get into my circle just yet, but I'll wait for it. I'll wait from the bus through.
Well, you need Chuck as your hype man, apparently.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so
seriously, real quick. Sorry,
hey,
Jimmy.
Go ahead.
San Jose got to put a call into you right now.
Really quick. What were the qualities you wanted as a coach? Like when you had your coach, you wanted him to have a plan, right? You wanted him to be able to put trainings together that dictated how you were going to play. You wanted
is this national team or club? Because national team and club are two different things.
Okay. Let's talk national team because this is the conversation, right? And you wanted to know the opponent, and then you always wanted that person to be honest with you, right? And not bullshit you. Okay, Jim, you're doing great. Then every Saturday or every trip you come in, you never play, right?
You're not in the squad.
Am I doing that great? And those guys, the best coaches you had, they told you everything. They told you when you needed to eat. They told you when you needed to train. They told you when to get on the bus. They told you when to go to sleep. Like, right or wrong, this is what they all did. Like, this is why I don't get. That's the guy we need for this, especially if you have a young national team.
Right. I would say, given my experience with the national team, I had a coach that, I'll say Bruce Arena was very good at doing what you're saying. Right. Hey, this is what's all happening. And what I loved about Bruce is that when it was time to concentrate and focus, he demanded that at the highest level possible. So when it was time to train, you're training your ass off and you're getting after it. And we're trying to build towards something. But then when it was time to relax, he wanted you to also relax your ass off, like just relax. Don't think about the game. And I loved that balance that he had and he could find. And I thought he was a fantastic man manager. But then when we transitioned to Bob Bradley, Bob was a little bit more structured, and at times we had curfews in place, and I struggled with that because it became so structured and a little bit different than Bruce, where I felt like I was being treated like I was a U14 player as opposed to a grown-ass man with a wife and kid at home. And I always thought, if people can't understand the responsibility of playing for the national team or understand how huge of an opportunity this is to represent your country, then they shouldn't be here anyway. And until they learn that, and if they're going to play themselves or break curfew or break the rules or whatever, the obvious rules that don't even need to be said, then they're out. I don't care how talented they are. And so I always had a little bit of a tough time.
That. I learned the hard way.
Yo, no, I know. I was there, dude. It's like, I can't even, the emotional process of all that, dude. You were awesome, Chuck, and I'm so sad all that happened to you, buddy. But
no, I mean, it's a learning experience, and obviously you have to grow from that, become better. And I had to kind of recreate who I am in a way, because you're forced to look at life differently. But in a way, I try and be the voice for the players currently and the players coming up, that you can't take it for granted, even in the mindset of, I'm not playing this game, so those rules don't apply to me. It always applies to you. And that's the thing. We want this U.S. men's national team to do well. We're in this business because we love the game, and we're trying to be honest as we possibly can in this media landscape, which I think we're all trying to do it a little bit different than it's been in the past. But ultimately, we want to be talking positively about this U.S. men's national team. We don't want to be sitting here saying they need to change the coach. The guys aren't giving it all. There's no focus. The tactics are wrong. The ideas are wrong. Or where are the creative players? We don't want to be doing that, but we got to keep it real. So ultimately, with this group, we think that a new coach will get the most out of them because they're going to be held accountable. They're going to be changing the way that, maybe there's just hearing a new voice with new ideas can do wonders. We see it all the time in the club football world. So I think that's what we're all asking for.
Yeah. And I look forward to this announcement that's going to be happening midweek. I'm putting air quotes around midweek because I don't know exactly what day that is. But again, we're going to have an emergency podcast to talk about whatever is said by U.S. Soccer and Matt Crocker in particular. All right, last question. Tone's coming to you first before we send everybody on their way. We appreciate everybody's support. Now, would you trade the 3 CONCACAF Nations League titles for 3 more Copa América games? So just so in some ways, just so we could play against CONMEBOL teams that are actually going to challenge us consistently, as opposed to a down in not necessarily in the mud, but kind of in the mud Mexico team who aren't the same as they used to be. And yeah, I know Panama beat us and so on and so forth, but just to have that experience against something different, because we're not going to have those types of games for the next 2 years, which completely sucks and blows my mind that we can't get better friendlies. But I don't want to get off topic. Would you rather have more games in Copa America than the Nations League?
Yeah,
titles?
where do I sign up, Jimmy, for that? We need the games, man. We need the games. It's clear. We need the games, and yeah, I would sign up for that in a heartbeat, no doubt about it.
No,
right, well,
Chuck, I say this because Canada are going to get 6 games, right?
Yeah.
They got out of the group, they got to the semis, they're going to get at least the third place game. I'm just saying that's the
you
context.
You can't tell me you would trade trophies. There's no way in hell you're telling me you're going to give up trophies. And it's against Mexico. You're telling me you're going to lose to Mexico twice and Canada once in a final just to get 3 more games?
Jimmy didn't say lose to Mexico. He didn't say lose to Mexico.
I didn't say that. Thanks,
yes,
no.
yes, because that's what would have happened. You're trading a loss for three more games. That's what it is. You're trading a trophy. Okay, so tell me what you're saying, because that's what it sounds like to me.
What I'm saying is that producer Des wanted me to ask this question, and that's what
you're telling me, because that's how it would happen.
Under the bus.
So you're telling me you lose the first Nations League game, which was epic, that final against Mexico, to beat them in that way.
Great experience. It brought
you beat Mexico again.
I get it.
And then you beat Canada. So that's 3 trophies. You're saying, oh, we lose those games, but we get 3 games, and that you could still lose Copa America final.
Yeah, I get that. What I'm saying,
we would lose Copa America.
No
way. Is that what you're saying?
I would keep the Nations League in Denver. I thought that was a really important win for our group of players.
All right, so then you can't trade. It's a hard trade.
I want to keep one. I want to keep one.
No, you gotta give them up.
I don't like this question anymore. I don't want to play. I'm gonna take my ball and go
so
home.
Producer Des, I want to know, Producer Des. Producer Des,
all in on the hypothetical about Jesse
did I trump your question?
He went all in, hypothetically, Jesse coaching the team, and then he wouldn't even play along with getting to a Copa America final.
Yeah, thanks, Stones.
I did. But I'm not trading 3 trophies, and I'm sure as hell not trading 2 wins against Mexico in Cup finals.
I say this, though, very quickly? If the Nations League didn't exist, we would get better friendlies. So in some ways, I kind of hope the Nations League didn't exist.
Yes, I agree with that.
Get rid of the Nations League so that we can get better friendlies.
Get rid of the Nations League. You're handicapping us.
Charlie.
Exactly.
Moving forward, this 4-year cycle from now, Copa America, we can win 3 more Nations League moving forward, or we get to the next final of Copa America.
Going forward, 3 more Nations League trophies, or get to a Copa America final. I'll take the 3 trophies and get to a Copa America semifinal.
Here we go.
And lose to Pens and lose on Pens. Okay, how about that?
All right, that's it. That's the show.
We got to be the top dogs.
I'm calling it. Call it what you want is done for today. Make sure, again, you come and join us for the emergency podcast once U.S. Soccer makes their announcement about the future of Gregg Berhalter. We've had a great show. Congratulations once again to the Olympic team. Whether you like who's on the team or not, we got to support them. We got to give them all our full support. These guys have worked very hard for this opportunity, and I'm very proud that they're representing us in a competition we haven't played in since 2008, and it's a big deal, and I want to make sure everybody's as positive as possible about the group of players that are going to be representing us there. And that's it. We'll see you guys in a couple days. Thanks for hanging out.
Copa America trophy for 3 Nations League trophies, Al.
Oh, here we go. Chuck's changing the rules. See you guys.